Have you ever opened Amazon Prime looking for one good gay movie and ended up scrolling through the same titles you have already seen? This fall, there are some seriously interesting male gay films worth adding to your watch list, from forbidden romances and undercover police stories to supernatural horror, biker relationships, and emotional dramas starring some of the biggest actors working today. So here are 10 gay films to watch on Amazon Prime this fall. Availability can vary by country, and some titles may appear through rental, purchase, or Prime Video channels. Number 10. Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Wonder who you'd be if you were an anonymous person in the world. I have no idea what you're talking about. You're as thick as it gets.
We are starting with one of the most recognizable gay romances on Prime Video. Alex Claremont Diaz is the son of the President of the United States, which means almost every part of his life is watched by the public. Across the Atlantic is Prince Henry, a member of the British royal family who has spent years learning how to behave exactly the way the monarchy expects. Alex and Henry do not particularly like each other. Their rivalry becomes a public relations problem after an embarrassing incident at a royal wedding, so their teams force them to pretend they are friends. At first, it is purely damage control, but the more they talk privately, the more their hostility turns into attraction. And before long, they are meeting in secret. For Alex, the relationship forces him to question things about himself he had never fully confronted. For Henry, the stakes are even higher. He has spent his entire life knowing that the person he loves may never fit the future his family has planned for him. Their romance becomes harder to hide as their feelings become more serious. What begins as a fake friendship eventually turns into a relationship that could create an international scandal. And once their private messages become vulnerable to exposure, Alex and Henry have to decide whether protecting their public lives is worth losing each other. Number 9. Sebastian.
You're new to this, aren't you? You've got that wholesome boy next door thing going on.
Sebastian follows Max, a young writer living in London who is trying to build a serious literary career. Max is working on a novel about a male sex worker, but instead of researching the subject from a distance, he creates an online identity called Sebastian and begins meeting older men himself. At first, Max tells himself that it is only research. Every encounter becomes material. He studies the men he meets, remembers their conversations, and transforms pieces of those experiences into scenes for his book. The problem is that the line between Max and Sebastian begins disappearing. What started as something controlled becomes part of his real life. He finds desire, loneliness, curiosity, affection, and a strange kind of freedom in those encounters. Max can be more honest as Sebastian than he seems able to be in the rest of his life. Meanwhile, his writing career starts moving forward. People around him are impressed by how authentic the novel feels, without knowing exactly where that authenticity is coming from. That secrecy creates pressure. Max wants recognition as a writer, but he also knows that revealing the truth behind his material could change the way people see him. As the story develops, Sebastian becomes less about someone researching a hidden world and more about a young man realizing that the hidden world may actually belong to him. Number 8. Mascarpone 2. The Rainbow Cake.
Luca è tornato perché voleva me.
3 anni fa, tu e Luca avete avuto la vostra grande occasione.
Quindi siamo cambiati.
Mi sa che stavolta è diverso.
The next movie brings us back to Antonio and Luca. Years have passed since their earlier relationship, and both men have tried to continue with their lives. Antonio has grown more independent. He has learned how to survive heartbreak, build a career, and create an identity that is no longer centered entirely around another person. Then, Luca returns. The reunion would already be complicated, but there is an even bigger problem. Luca is preparing to marry someone else. Suddenly, Antonio is confronted with feelings he thought he had already put behind him. Old memories return. Unresolved emotions begin surfacing, and the connection between the two men becomes impossible to ignore. The movie asks whether two people can genuinely move on when part of them is still attached to what they once had. Antonio wants to protect himself. He knows how painful their history was, and he does not want to become trapped inside the same emotional cycle again. But Luca's return forces both men to look at the choices they made after separating. The tone is lighter than some of the heavier films here, but underneath the comedy is a story about timing. Sometimes the person you loved comes back at exactly the wrong moment, and sometimes that is when you finally have to decide whether the relationship belongs in your future or only in your past. Number 7. Sauna.
Skyt med folk på den her måde.
Ikke rigtigt.
Du er...
Sauna takes us into Copenhagen's gay nightlife through Johan, a young man who spends much of his time moving between parties, hookups, and the sauna where he works. His life is built around freedom. There are few commitments and even fewer expectations. Then he meets William. William is a trans man, and the connection between them quickly becomes more meaningful than Johan expected. What initially feels like another attraction begins turning into something emotionally complicated. Johan wants to be close to William, but their relationship forces him to confront assumptions inside the gay world he thought he understood. William is not interested in becoming somebody's lesson or experiment. He has his own boundaries, frustrations, desires, and experiences. Their relationship exists inside a community that can be liberating, but also judgmental. The film looks at desire without pretending that attraction automatically makes people emotionally mature. Johan makes mistakes. He says the wrong things, misunderstands situations, and sometimes treats freedom as an excuse to avoid responsibility. William challenges that. Their relationship becomes a test of whether Johan can move beyond the shallow version of connection he has grown comfortable with. Sauna is intimate, messy, and much more interested in emotional honesty than in giving its characters an easy romance. Number 6. A Night Like This.
There is no pattern, no fate, no such thing as meaning. Just fortunate and unfortunate people.
You are a nerd.
A Night Like This begins with two men meeting during a single night in London. They are strangers with very different personalities and very different reasons for being awake while most of the city is sleeping. What starts casually becomes a long night of walking, talking, drinking, joking, and slowly revealing things they would probably never tell someone in daylight. Because morning is coming and they are not sure they will ever meet again, the night gives them a strange freedom to be unusually honest. As they move through London, the conversation becomes more personal, the flirting becomes harder to dismiss, and their connection develops far faster than either expected. Both are carrying emotional baggage, and they eventually have to confront the possibility that this means more than a random encounter. It is about the strange moment when someone you have known for only a few hours suddenly feels more emotionally important than people who have been in your life for years. And by sunrise, both men have to decide whether what happened belongs only to the night or deserves to continue after it. All right, we're halfway through the list, and it only gets better from here. If you're loving this content, do me a huge favor and hit that join button right below this video. Becoming a member supports Pride Flicks directly and helps us keep making content that celebrates our community. Number 5. Lily's Not For Me.
Misery, denial.
Not anymore. They found a cure.
Lily's Not For Me takes us into a period when loving another man could completely destroy someone's life. The story centers on Owen, a young novelist undergoing psychiatric treatment, whose memories reveal his relationship with Philip. The two men were deeply connected, but they were living in a world that treated their feelings as something dangerous that needed to be corrected. Instead of being allowed to understand their relationship naturally, they become trapped inside the idea that their attraction has to disappear. That leads them toward a horrifying attempt to change themselves. The movie focuses on what happens emotionally when people are taught to fear their own capacity to love. Owen carries the consequences long after the relationship itself has changed. His memories of Philip contain tenderness, confusion, guilt, and pain. At the same time, another relationship begins developing in the present through the conversation surrounding his treatment. The movie becomes a contrast between the love Owen was told he could not have and the possibility that he might still be capable of finding connection after everything he has experienced. It is a quiet film, but the emotional damage at the center of the story is brutal. Two men do not suffer because their relationship is wrong. They suffer because the world around them convinces them that it is. Number 4. Leviticus.
You okay? You see anything that looks like me? Don't go near it.
If you want something darker this fall, Leviticus takes gay coming-of-age drama into supernatural horror. The story follows two teenage boys whose feelings for each other develop inside a deeply religious environment. Their attraction is already dangerous because the people around them believe homosexuality is sinful, but the threat becomes much more terrifying when something supernatural begins targeting them. The horror is tied directly to repression, feeding on the fear, shame, and religious pressure connected to their sexuality. That makes every moment of intimacy feel dangerous. Even when they are alone, they never completely escape the beliefs that have been forced onto them. Their relationship becomes both a refuge and a source of fear. They want to trust each other, but they have been taught to distrust themselves. As supernatural events become more violent, the boys are pushed toward a choice. They can continue allowing other people to define what their feelings mean, or they can accept that the thing destroying them may not be their love at all. Leviticus works because the horror is not separate from the gay story. The monster represents something the characters have been living with long before anything supernatural appears, and that makes the romance at the center of the film feel even more urgent. Number 3, plain clothes.
Hey, I think you dropped this.
Plain Clothes takes us to the 1990s and follows Lucas, a young police officer assigned to an undercover operation targeting gay men. His job is disturbing. He is sent into public spaces where men meet discreetly, and he is expected to lure them into revealing their sexuality so police can arrest them. Lucas enters the operation believing he can separate the job from his personal life. Then he meets Andrew. Andrew is older, confident, and different from the men Lucas has been taught to see as targets. Instead of simply completing the arrest, Lucas becomes fascinated by him. That fascination turns into attraction. Suddenly, the person Lucas is supposed to expose becomes the person who exposes something Lucas has been hiding from himself. Their relationship grows under impossible circumstances. Lucas cannot be honest about who he is. He also cannot forget that the police operation surrounding him is built on humiliating men for the exact feelings he is beginning to experience. At home, pressure continues building. Lucas is expected to perform a version of masculinity that leaves no room for uncertainty. His connection with Andrew becomes more dangerous every time they meet. The undercover operation becomes intensely personal. Lucas fears both his colleagues discovering the relationship and what accepting it would mean about the life he has been pretending to live. Before I cover the top 2 movies, here's the quick thing. My boyfriend bet me $100 that Prideflix would never reach 70,000 subscribers, and I really want to prove him wrong and win that $100. So if you're enjoying the video, hit subscribe. It's free, takes 1 second, and helps Prideflix grow. Number 2, Pillion.
What am I gonna do with you? Whatever you want. Really?
Pillion is probably one of the strangest and most talked about gay romances on this list. Colin is shy, awkward, and used to moving through life without attracting much attention. Then he meets Ray. Ray is everything Colin is not. He is confident, physically imposing, intimidating, and deeply connected to a biker world that immediately fascinates Colin. Their attraction develops into a relationship, but this is not a conventional romance. Ray introduces Colin to a dominant and submissive dynamic where the rules of their connection are largely controlled by Ray. For Colin, that is both exciting and destabilizing. He is drawn to Ray's certainty and the feeling that someone finally knows exactly what he wants from him. But the deeper Colin enters Ray's world, the more he has to ask whether surrendering control is actually making him happier. The relationship forces him to discover desires he never understood before, while also confronting how easily desire can become dependency. His emotional distance makes the relationship harder to understand. Colin wants intimacy, but Ray may define intimacy very differently. That tension gives Pillion its edge. It is funny, uncomfortable, erotic, and emotionally unpredictable. Most importantly, it refuses to turn the relationship into something simple. Colin's journey becomes about learning that discovering what turns you on is not necessarily the same thing as discovering what you need from another person. Number 1, the history of sound.
Lionel Worthing.
David White.
Across the Rocky Mountain.
At number 1 is The History of Sound, starring Paul Mescal and Josh O'Connor. The story begins during the First World War era when Lionel and David meet while studying music. They connect immediately through music, and the way songs can preserve memories that might otherwise disappear. Their friendship becomes something more intimate. But this is a time when two men cannot simply build a life together openly. War, distance, family expectations, and the realities of the period constantly threaten whatever future they might imagine. Years later, Lionel and David reconnect for a journey through rural America. Their goal is to record folk songs and voices before they disappear. As they travel, the work becomes inseparable from their relationship, and every recording becomes connected to a memory they may never repeat. The painful part is not whether they understand what they feel. It is whether life will give them the space to keep it. The History of Sound is more interested in the small details people remember years later: a voice, a song, a room, a journey. The person who changed your life even if you were never allowed to hold on to him in the way you wanted. And with Mescal and O'Connor at the center, this is easily the movie on this list I would watch first. And those are 10 gay films worth watching on Amazon Prime this fall. Which one are you most excited to see? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to Pride Flicks for more gay movie recommendations, and I will see you in the next video.